welcome or welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a super exciting reading vlog. Ignore this is for a different reading vlog. I am going to be starting a book very soon. I'm going to be starting House of Earth and Blood very soon. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Robin. We're going to be doing little live reading sprints for it where we drink, and I am super fucking pumped. If you don't know, I do not like Sarah J. Maas. I have read Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I strongly disliked both of those books. There were redeeming qualities, but overall I really disliked them. Both of them got 2 stars from me. I personally do not see the appeal in her books. Yes, they read quickly, but like there's, in my opinion, nothing in them that really like stands the test of time that I think does like makes the book deserving of such the like cult following that they have. However, I am genuinely somewhat interested in this. I'm not going into this just with the intention of hating it, although hate reading is fun, and I will stand by that. But I have been seeing a ton of people hyping up the series because the second book came out at the beginning of this year, and I thought it would be a good time to read it soon. I've also been seeing on TikTok some people do like recaps. My Name is Marinez specifically, she does these really great recaps where she also drinks because Sarah J. Maas reuses words a lot. And that kind of inspired me to like want to pick it up, but also make my own drinking game. And so during the sprints slash like live reading sessions Robin and I will be doing, we will be drinking and playing along with the drinking game that I created with a little bit of help. I don't know if this is going to be the final version because I am waiting for someone to just confirm something for me about this book, but I tried to cater it specifically to this book and this series based off things that I found online, based on Rachel from Reads with Rachel's bingo boards. She kind of inspired the drinking game. I think we will also be using her bingo boards for like sex scenes if we come across any, because her bingo boards are fantastic. But there's a drinking game specifically, and I also looked up online like things Sarah J. Maas says. Someone created a like a drinking game already, but it was more for like Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, so I didn't really want to use that. Obviously, whatever inspirations I took will be linked down below so you guys can go check out, but here is mine. This is what I have set up so far. So there's obviously sips, and then there's down your drink, and these are obviously for things that are less common. So we've got words that she uses a shit ton and phrases because Sarah J. Maas is nothing if not repetitive. So words like mate, I heard that a lot of her books do that. That's something everyone says. Door is used a lot. I got that directly from My Name is Marinez. That poor woman was drinking a lot. And hell as well. Hell is, I guess, Sarah J. Maas is like fantasy hell, so there's only one L. The phrase generous curves, people on the internet are saying that this book, this phrase appears a shit ton in A House of Earth and Blood, so I will definitely be drinking to that. Someone also said death incarnate shows up like a ridiculous amount of times in the series. And then just more general things that pop up. So Sarah J. Maas has a thing for mentioning when people's eyes are like special colors like amber or golden or flecked. So I thought that'd be fun to throw in. Someone reveals a tragic backstory. I feel like with the sheer amount of characters she always pumps into her books, someone's gonna have a tragic backstory, so that will be fun to drink to. Someone hisses. I flipped through the book and there was a shocking amount of people hissing. It's kind of weird. I don't know who hisses in real life, but I thought I'd throw that in here. This one also is from My Name is Marinez, and she pointed out, and something that I noticed too in ACOTAR, who the fuck? Farah is a painter, and she talks about painting constantly, and it is so annoying. So I thought I would throw in like Bryce's dancing because it is mentioned in House of Earth and Blood, and it was pointed out by people. So I thought I would throw that in here. Male or female are often used instead of man and woman, and like I understand that she has like fantasy creatures in her books, but it's just like such a weird turn of phrase, and apparently it happens all the time, so that is being thrown in. And then someone's tattoo being mentioned, because apparently everyone's like tattooed. I don't know. I'm feeling this alone, which is why I put like take a sip. This alone is gonna get me absolutely fucked. But there's also a little down your drink section. If the word alcohol is used, I don't know why this is a word at all, and it is so annoying to me just looking at it. I think it is a terrible choice of word. So I'm throwing that in there. Hopefully it's not used too often, but it's just like, it is like the pinnacle when I think of this book. I hear that used a lot. So biting. Someone mentioned this on the internet, and flipping through the book, I did see it a couple of times. And then Rachel from Reads with Rachel also mentioned that there is someone who suggests that they want to eat someone out and like bite their pussy, which is really fucking weird. What the fuck, Sarah J Maas? So I think that should be like a down your drink, because it's probably going to be accompanied with a what the fuck moment. A man growls or snarls or howls. Why? She does this a lot in sex scenes. From what I know, I hear this repeated constantly, so I thought I'd throw it in the down your drink, because apparently this book does not have a lot of sex scenes. I noticed just one when I was flipping through it, so who knows. And finally, this again from Reads with Rachel. In her review of House of Earth and Blood, she mentioned that Sarah J Maas has a tendency to reuse the phrase like calls to like. It's such a specific turn of phrase that it is very noticeable when she uses it, which is why I thought I would put it in the down your drink, because hopefully it's not used that often, but it is used often enough that, you know, we can down our drink a couple of times. So that's what we have so far for the drinking game. By the time we actually do like the live reading sprints and like sessions, we'll have the game finalized, but I think this is probably the final version. I will release it like on Twitter and stuff in case you are interested in joining along. Even if you are a Sarah J Maas fan, I feel like it's still like, you know, it could be a fun way to interact with the book. I will definitely give you guys reading updates through the vlog. I will try to keep them non-spoilery, because I feel like that's going to be more enjoyable for everyone. But at this point, a lot of people have read this, so I don't know if it would be worth it, but I'm kind of excited, if only for the reading experience of buddy reading it with Robin and having this like drinking game. I feel like it's gonna be really fun. But at the same time, like, I hope I like it. I think that is the main thing. Like, I'm not reading this with just the express hope of hating on it and like shitting all over it. Like, I hope I somewhat like it, obviously. But like, if I don't, I feel like it's still gonna be a fun time. So I will update you when I have like read a little bit, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, it's time. I've decided to embark on the journey of finally starting Crescent City. I've got like all my annotation supplies. I've got my drinking game rules, and I have, of course, an adult beverage, because there's a drinking game, and I feel like it's only fair to start off on the right foot. Now, having watched Marinez's series on TikTok, I know that there is a lot to drink to in the first chapter or so. So this is gonna be interesting. Flipping through it, I've started just kind of underlining a few of the things that I am looking out for in the drinking game, and I also noticed there's a lot of like swear words. So I feel like I have to do like a tally after every chapter, because this seems excessive. I'm not gonna lie. As you can see, there's only a little bit gone, so I will only be drinking from here on out with the book, which means that we're gonna actually see how long it takes to finish the whole bottle just taking sips, because I don't think there's gonna be a down your drink yet, but who knows. But for now, let's get into this bad boy. I am kind of anticipating this just for the memes, but like, I'll try to actually give it a fair shot, obviously. So I have read through chapter 1. Beer update, not good. Most of my beer is gone. That's how much I have had to take sips because of Miss SJM's repetitive ass writing. I even took notes on how much certain things were said. The word door was used 11 times in one chapter. The fantasy hell that Miss SJM uses with just one L, 4 times. Tattoos were mentioned 3 times in one chapter. That seems excessive. Just out of curiosity, I'm not drinking for this one, but the word fuck appeared 8 times, and a lot of people were giggling that this book was Sarah J Maas realizing that she could write adult books and thinking that automatically meant you had to include shit, crap, fuck every like few words. That's exactly what she did, okay? Listen, in like this is not like it. I guess it is Bryce's, the main character's internal monologue, but she's like, Danica rearranged the crap in the closet to make space for her own. I'm sorry. I understand that like this is, but it's not even first person perspective. This is third person perspective, and I guess you are in Bryce's head, but it's still kind of weird to be using crap instead of just things. I don't know, that grinds my gears. There's also like tons of info dumping, world building, stuff that is very clearly foreshadowing. Just way too much. It's not very, what's the word? It's not very tactfully done, I guess. It's just pure info dumping, but things that I don't think you need to know necessarily right off the bat, or things that maybe you could learn naturally throughout the story. For example, there's a big chunk, literally like several lines, a paragraph's worth of description of each head controlled a specific part of the city. The Prime of the Wolves in Moonwood, the Fey Autumn King in Five Roses, the Under King in the Bone Quarter. Yes, it's useful to know in theory. However, I don't want it dumped on me in one shot. Why isn't it more natural? If the character, for example, walks into Moonwood and says she now entered the prime, the wolves area, and then if she had to go to the meat market, she could say the Viper Queens area. Like, that makes so much more sense than a whole paragraph where I'm probably going to forget it unless I tab it, which I probably will because I want to try to give this book the fairest shot I can. But I'm just already so frustrated by the choices being made. Medinez brought this one up too, and it stuck out to me. There's like a whole random section, like a whole random paragraph talking about Bryce had always wondered why Jezebel bothered with an old-fashioned generator until the citywide first light outage last week. When the power had failed, only the generator had kept the mechanical locks in place during the looting that followed, when creeps had rushed in from the meat market, bombarding the gallery's front door with counterspells to break through the enchantments. And then she immediately returns, but, Danica ditching the sword in the office, Danica needing to take a shower, her stiff back. Like, it's just so not carefully done, I guess. It's not very smooth. It's super clunky. I don't know if I'll be able to keep reading now since I technically have to go grab another drink, but like, or I'll keep reading and maybe not drinking, but it's insane. Like, there's so much repetition. And then beyond the other words, I noted that she's starting to use her golden skin again, and skin tight is something that jumped out at me. I noticed that while flipping through the rest of the book that she uses like skin tight dresses, skin tight shirt. So I'm gonna count that just for shits and giggles. So we'll update when I read a little more. Hello. It's time for a reading update. Ignore the Mount Vesuvius that's erupted on my forehead. We're not going to talk about her. Instead, we're going to talk about how fucking awful this book is. Because, Lord, I am 300 pages in at this point. I'll give Sarah J. Maas this. She makes compulsively readable books. The plot, now that we got through the first 100 pages, is flying. Because the first 100 pages was so much exposition, I did not remember a single thing. There are too many characters. Shit is flying at you way too fast. But now that we are past the exposition and things are happening, it's a little easier to read. It's become like actually basically compulsively readable. So that makes it a little easier to get through and almost enjoyable if it weren't for how cringe this is. I truly struggle to understand how this is written for adult audiences because it does not read adult other than the excessive use of swear words. And it's funny because I was talking to Robin, who, you know, I'm buddy reading this with, and she was like, I didn't even notice the swear words. What does that say about me? And I'm like, listen, I have a notorious potty mouth. I am terrible at not really learning when's the appropriate time to drop F-bombs, but this is just excessive for a fantasy, like an adult fantasy, which already often has, you know, the word fuck and shit and ass and piss. I never read it as excessively as I do in this book, and it's just gotten to a point where it's like, it's just rough. And then Miss Sarah J. Maas, I truly believe, my conspiracy theory Shane Dawson moment is that Sarah J. Maas does not have an editor that is not afraid to tell her no. Her editor must be terrified of her or Sarah J. Maas's agent, because her editor is not fucking doing... She's not doing it. She's not doing a good job. On one singular page, I counted it. On this one page here, the phrase blew out a breath, word for word, blew out a breath, is used 3 times on one page. On one page. And one character does it 2 times in a row, because this is just a conversation between 2 characters. So I was reading it and I was like, the first time I circled it because I'm circling things that Sarah J. Maas tends to repeat often, like the phrase golden, like blew out a breath or loosed a breath. She also tends, like everything is described as golden, not just skin, which I think I mentioned earlier, but Sarah J. Maas describes like everything as golden. For some reason, this entire city is made of gold, it seems. Golden is used a lot, obviously, like skin tight. Just certain things she tends to repeat over and over. Scent, everyone's like scented instead of just smelled. Just, you know, what I'm considering Sarah J. Maasisms, but blew out a breath 3 times on one page. Miss Thing, you need an editor. Or your editor needs to tell you no. It's just like, it's page after page of nonsense. The next page I had like tabbed to talk about. Alcohol is used twice on the same page, which in my drinking game would be down your drink. I've had to give up, for the sake of my liver, I've had to give up drinking along to this fucking book because otherwise I would get liver failure, and I am Russian. It would take a lot for me to get liver failure, and I would get it. The other thing I wanted to bring up is this, like, her exposition and her writing just drives me fucking insane. Not only do we have entire pages and pages of exposition and world building that is extremely irrelevant to whatever is happening, to the point where it's like, I'm going to forget about all of this 100%. Like, I will not remember any of this, and that's okay. You know, I can deal with info dumping. It's a little excessive, but like beyond that, there's other little moments that like just drive me insane, because you spend all this time like doing exposition and world building, and then you still assume that your reader is a big idiot. There is this part. Someone's talking about Bryce and how after this tragic event in her life, she had cut out alcohol and drugs. She decided to stop really being a party girl. She doesn't really want to do her favorite thing in the world, dancing, anymore, because, in case you didn't know, because it's mentioned every single chapter, Bryce loves to dance. Every single one of Sarah J. Maas's protagonists have like their hobby, and it is shoved down your throat. God, let me tell you. And so it's like, there's this sentence that's like, how cutting out the alcohol and drugs, how refusing to do the thing she loved most, the dancing, still couldn't make it right. It's like, yes, we know. We get it. You're just assuming your reader is stupid at this point, and it's extremely disrespectful. But it's also just bad writing, because you've already told us that it's the thing she loved to do. Either just say the dancing or just say the thing she loved to do, and do not assume that your adult reader is not gonna be able to put the 2 together, because I promise you we are. Listen, I'm gonna finish this thing. Like, I'm not hating the experience, because it is interesting to get into the mind of Sarah J. Maas, but it's like, holy shit, sis, get an editor, stop assuming your readers are stupid, and maybe stop reusing the same words over and over and relying on them like a crutch, because it just reads like fan fiction. Someone who just learned to write for the first time and thinks that using these like little cliches and tropes is cool. I wrote fan fiction for a while. I did the same thing. It's not cool. It's extremely repetitive and really annoying. I will update you guys when I read more. I'm like getting through, like 300 pages is a chunk of the way in, but there's still ways to go, and I have a feeling it's not gonna get better. It's an experience. Am I loving it? No. Is it interesting? Maybe. I'm seeing what everyone's liking about this, I guess. If you don't think too hard about it, it's fast-paced once it gets into the action. If you don't think too hard about it, it's like, it's moving, and you can read 100 pages easily, but at what cost? Hello. It is a rainy, gloomy day, so I thought the mood was fitting for me to give a little update on Crescent City, because I read 100 pages last night. It's one thing I'll give the book. It is very easy to read. However, it is not enjoyable. So in this last 100 pages, it was just a big, fat, nothing burger. We probably could have condensed it down into like 20 and still had character development. But even the character development that we got was just so whack. So as I'm reading, obviously I'm talking to Robin about it because we are buddy reading it. We both decided to take a little break at the beginning of August because we had some like family stuff. We were almost both on the verge of a slump, so we figured this would not help. And I had vacation and stuff, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with this book right now, but when I come back, I gladly will get back into it. And so I did, and we were talking about it, and we're just like, first of all, this book way too long. I'm sure I've mentioned it before in the vlog, but I will keep mentioning it because we are 400 pages in and almost nothing has happened, and whatever has happened could probably fit in 150 pages, maybe 200 pages, sure. This is just unnecessary. A lot of it is childish banter that comes down to just very juvenile writing that's not really enjoyable. It's not really how adults act. But fair enough, there are childish adults. Like, you could make that argument. I would give you that. The other thing, though, is that, like, the way the relationship is progressing is just really stupid, because Hunt and Bryce are beginning to see each other as, like, potential love interests. They're starting to acknowledge the other person. The problem is when Hunt does it towards Bryce, it does not feel... It makes me feel icky, because Bryce acknowledges, like, humanity in Hunt and seems to respect him a little bit more as they go along, but Hunt seems to, like, not really respect Bryce still. He has not, like, indicated at all anything beyond just finding her physically attractive and admitting he was wrong, and like, she's not that much of a party girl as he thought, but he still seems to have, like, no respect for her. So trying to view him as a viable love interest for her, because you're supposed to be rooting for her because she's the main character, just feels really weird. And then there was a specific incident. So if you're very sensitive to spoil, like, this has no bearing on the plot, so it's not really a spoiler in my opinion, but if you're sensitive to spoilers, you can feel free to skip ahead, but I don't think it's really a spoiler. There's a situation where they're at a shooting range, Hunt and Bryce and a couple of other characters, and the other characters, who are all men, decide to kind of make fun of the girl, of course, because she probably can't shoot, so we're gonna, like, bet her that she can't hit the target. So she's, like, acting, you know, she's a little flirty. She's been that way throughout the whole book. She's a little flirty, and then all of a sudden Hunt starts getting, like, really aroused by the way she's talking and, like, winking. And it just starts getting, like, really uncomfortable really fast. Like, sir, you are at a shooting range. And then she proceeds to fire a gun 3 times and, like, hits the bullseye on the spot, like, all 3 bullets. And Hunt is, like, literally, I believe it was quoted, like, it was as if she had wrapped her hands around his cock. And I was like, you might need to get that checked out. Just saying. I don't know, there's just, it's continuing to be unbearably cringe, and I can deal with cringe. I grew up writing Wattpad stories about One Direction, listen. It's just not great. There's just a situation where Bryce and Hunt they're walking around somewhere, and she grabs his phone and she's like, there's not enough photos on your phone, like, don't you take photos of pretty things, like a pretty flower, a good meal? And he goes, well, what's the point? And then says, like, she blinked and shook her head, weirdo. And it just kind of ends there. And it's like, okay, well, for all the time you spend on useless things, Sarah, you could have spent a little bit of time here for an actual, like, character building moment and relationship building moment and giving them some insight into each other. I guess the reader's supposed to infer from this, which, like, you kind of do, obviously. There was a good chance there. Like, why just end it with weirdo when it's like she could have explained that, like, I don't know, it's like those little things that I like being able to flip back through my phone, or, like, related to Danica. You know, I love having all the photos of me and Danica on my phone because it's a reminder of the good times when things get hard. And then, you know, Hunt could be big crybaby and be like, well, I don't think there's anything, like, worth living for, you know? And then they could have, like, a little moment and discover more about each other. But it just ends with, like, weirdo. It's like, Sarah Maas, you have spent all this time giving us exactly no details about either of these characters and why they hate each other so much, by the way. Marinez made that point in her videos too. I love watching her recaps because it helps me pick up on things, because obviously everyone gets something different out of these books, and with how much info dumping there is, you miss a lot of shit. And she was talking about how, like, there's no explanation for the animosity they feel towards each other, so it's a lot less satisfying when they get past it, and that's exactly how it is. They don't like each other based on mischaracterizations and assumptions they have of each other, which is fair. but there's no need for it to be as extreme as it is, and for them to be literally like enemies to lovers. So it just comes off as like pointless, like they're antagonizing for what? There's also like an excessive amount of mentions of people looking at Bryce's ass, and it's just like, okay, we understand she is hot. Sarah J. Maas's heroines are all pretty women that don't know they're pretty, or that they know they're pretty and weaponize it, which I respect, but we don't need to know that like everyone is staring at it all the time. And then yeah, just them making like hard eyes at each other is where this is slowly starting to go at the point that we're at. The slow burn has, you know, started to accelerate, and I am just simply not enjoying it. Like, this is so long, and for what? Like, is it kind of entertaining because it's that bad? Like, yeah. I could even find redeemable things in her other books. I read Throne of Glass and Court of Thorns and Roses. I almost forgot it. Like, there is truly, other than the readability, there is nothing redeeming about this. I find the characters extremely predictable and stereotypical. I find the plot is barely progressing. Like, what plot? A lot of the stuff just kind of doesn't make sense, especially because we are info dumped into like onto so much that there's just kind of nothing tying the story together. It's just a lot of information mixed in with like banter and then occasionally something happening. A lot of the stuff also happens off page, which is kind of annoying. Like some of the like research or like the investigating that they're supposed to be doing ends up happening like off page, and it's just kind of weird. It seems like just service to write a romance, but you don't want to market it as a romance. So you're going to give us a fantasy world and some kind of mystery plot engine that is really just secondary to your hot, hunky, male main love interest with wings that he curls protectively around his woman, and then the self-insert extremely generic heroine that is just so hot and sexy and everyone wants her, but she like knows her worth and she's like a feminist. Yes. Also, if I never have to read the word alpha hole again in my life, it will still be too soon. Why is it used so much? Is there no other word you could have picked? In general, like, why the swearing? Like, asshole, shit, fuck, everything under the sun. I've never read the word slut so much in a book either. Like, it's just because it's adult does not mean you have to speak like teenagers think adults speak. I promise. Adults are complex humans that can articulate things. They don't have to say fucking all the time. I promise you. I have a very important question for Miss Sarah J. Maas. Baby, do you plot your books before you write them? Do you reread what you wrote previously, or do you just word vomit everything out and submit it to the publisher? Because this is stupid as hell. Okay, this thing keeps getting mentioned towards, okay, first of all, we're 540 pages in. Fucking nothing has happened. There has been one reveal or a couple of small reveals, and half of them were like, oh, but maybe not really. Like, take back. Fuck, no, if you're gonna say it, say it. But then, okay, so within all these reveals, there was the mention of a potential object. I'm keeping it vague. And Bryce calls someone who is like, oh, who told you about this stuff? Bitch, you did on page 55. You literally tell Bryce about this thing. What do you mean, who told you? What do you fucking mean? Sarah J. Maas, do you read what you have written? I sent this to Robin, and I was like, I feel like Sarah J. Maas does that like clip of Michael from The Office where he's like, sometimes I just start a sentence and I don't know where it's going. I hope I find it along the way. I think that's how she writes books. Because this is fucking stupid. Like, I'm getting like angry at how, first of all, how much time I'm wasting reading this whole big pile of nothing. I get slow buildup, but this really could have been condensed. Like, there are times like, okay, Robin Hobb, am I biased? Perhaps. Everything in her book is intentional. There's still something happening, even if there's not specific like action scenes or the plot isn't really moving forward, because it is very important character development, or it is planting the seed for something later on. Miss Sarah J. Maas does not plant seeds. she smacks you across the face with them and then like buries you in them, or it's just a whole steaming pile of nothing. And it's supposed to be character development, but it just comes off as filler and possibly fan service, like all these moments of Bryce and Hunt being like domestic. And like it's supposed to develop the relationship, but to be honest, it's not. It's not giving anything at all to me. And it's just really draining to have read what is essentially the length of a regular fantasy book already, 544 pages, and to have had absolutely nothing happen. All of this could have been done in 200 pages. This is just not worth the time that I have invested into this. Yes, it reads really quickly and compulsively. Like it's easy to read. I can read the 100 pages in a sitting, easy peasy, but like it's not good. It's not giving any relevancy to the story. For all that has happened actually and all the relationship and character development, this could have been 300 pages. But no, I've spent 544 pages on this shit. I'm exhausted. So tonight's the night. I'm at the last part of the book. I don't have much to go. Probably page 620. There's like 800 pages. So I could easily finish this tonight, and that is the plan. I've got a glass of wine. I've got a pencil, which I will use for later, because I'm planning on giving my thoughts upon finishing the book, obviously, as well as right after this little part, my current thoughts as to where I am. But I also want to go back and do a formal wrap-up for this vlog with just my thoughts and things I have noticed throughout the book, because I have been making note of things beyond the drinking game. I have been making note of things that Sarah J. Maas just uses a lot, says a lot, turns of phrase that are just bad or cringe, because it's fun, you know, it's something for me to do to keep myself engaged. So I wanted to do like a formal sit down after the fact, so I need to go back through all my notes and everything. That's why I'm always like underlining and making notes of things, but I will definitely give my thoughts as I finish the book. As I stand currently with this work of art, I'm frustrated because I have hit the, I guess, the emotional, like the twist, the emotional climax of the book. I'm sure there's going to be like a resolution to what happened there, but it feels so lackluster. Several things stood out to me. The fantasy part of this book could have been removed entirely and it would still be the same book, which is frustrating because when I read a fantasy that is pitched and sold as a fantasy, even if it is an urban fantasy, I expect the fantasy element to be a bit more present. Obviously, I enjoy high fantasy the most. It's what I tend to read, and I like when fantasy and the magic in a world plays a tangible role in the plot. For example, the search for a magical object, or the search for a source of power, or the source of magic, or the search for magic to return to a world, or a specific forbidden magic, like something along those lines, right? And the funny thing is that there is a subplot of a search for a magical object in this, but the problem is the object is broken. It is a magical object that has been broken for years. So the magical object that we're searching for as part of the plot is not even fucking functioning. So like, what's the point? I'm frustrated. I'm really, really frustrated. At essence, this is a seedy underbelly drug plot. Murder mystery and drug plot, which could have happened in any other setting. Sarah J. Maas, if you want to write romance, if you want to write like mob romance, that would probably suit you a lot better than this nonsense, because I'm frustrated. The magic in this world could be entirely removed, other than the people's fantasy races and the setting and like the slight ability for some people to do magic. Okay, Hunt has like lightning abilities and he barely uses them. It's just casually mentioned all the time that lightning's just like wreathing across his fingers, but he barely fucking uses it anyways. Like, it's just fucking useless. Why have magic at all at this point? I'm also struggling because there's this one character that is, his name is Rune, and he is our main character Bryce's brother. And she like always looks down on him for being an asshole because he's full-blooded Fae and she's half-blooded. But honestly, he is the best person in this entire thing. He's just a genuinely nice person. Of course, he's not a love interest. No, why would we ever consider someone nice as a potential love interest in a Sarah J. Maas book? Unreasonable, right? He's trying to look out for Bryce. He is going out of his way to check up on her. He is being a genuine, decent human being beyond just doing his job. He is also just being a nice person, and she's just completely snobbing him all the time and considering him her asshole brother, and it's just kind of frustrating, to be honest. Like, it's kind of draining to watch the one good person in this be treated like shit. And it's just getting really draining, honestly. Like, this book is just not good. Anyways, I'm gonna go finish it. I don't know where the plot is going. We just had like the climax, like I was saying, the kind of like emotional climax, and there was a big twist. The big twist was stupid. There's nothing worse than a twist that comes out of absolutely nowhere, and not in a good way, in that you should have seen it coming, and like you should have seen the little threads, and the threads were there. Like I said earlier, I think Sarah J Maas just starts writing a book, and then when she gets to certain points, she's like, huh, okay, we're just gonna go in this direction now. I'm gonna ignore everything I said, because like when I was ranting in my last clip about her like forgetting what she wrote earlier, turns out she didn't forget about it. She mentions in the same page. No, I'm never gonna find it. I need to show you guys this. This is the part I was talking about. Who told you about synth? So I raged and I said, you literally took it before. And I was like, no, okay. I went back and I double checked. I cross-referenced. Page 50-ish. Bryce does not actually take the synth, but she is told about the synth by Fury. So Fury, baby, why are you asking? Who told you about this? Not even a full page later. You never thought to mention it to anyone. I did, to you, at the White Raven the night Danica died. Someone tried to sell it to you, for fuck's sake. I told you to stay the hell away with it. You just asked who told you about synth. Sarah J Maas, do you ever go back and read what you write? I'm confused. I am losing my mind. Like, this is just lazy at this point. How does she get rewarded for this? How does she get traditionally published, so much money put behind her books? Because like, they sell. I get that. I'm not that stupid. I'm just frustrated. Like, how does she get this much praise? How does she get this much money and power behind her? It's mind-boggling. This is awful. Anyways, now that the emotional climax, the twist is here, there's nothing less to do but to watch the resolution. Honestly, I don't see how they're gonna drag this into a multi-book series, but I'm sure there's gonna be another twist right at the end. It's just gonna make everyone want to buy the next book, which is what happened with the second book, I heard, when the reviews for that one were coming out, because I wasn't paying attention when the reviews for the first one came out, because I didn't think I wanted to read it. But now that the second one is out, I was watching some people mention it in like wrap-ups and stuff, and they were like, yeah, this book was actually kind of trash until the end, and there was a plot twist. Now I have to read the next one. I'm like, I bet my life that's exactly what's gonna happen at the end of this one, and it's just gonna be like, you kind of have to know what happens, like a cliffhanger in a bad reality show. And I'm probably not gonna read the next one because I'm not enjoying this that much, but like at the same time, like I'm kind of enjoying the process of yelling about it, so I mean, we'll see. But long story short, I'm gonna go and finish the book tonight. Wish me luck, and I will catch up with you guys once I'm done. This might be the world's pettiest gripe, but Sarah J Maas describes everything as golden, and you'll see it in the stats, because I'm sure I'll go back and document it, because I keep circling it, because it is excessive. But I just came across an example, and I thought of like 10 alternatives she could have put. The brimstone missiles shot from the launchers and arced over the walls, blazing with golden light, blazing with sudden light, blazing with bright light, blazing with dazzling light, blazing with, did I say bright? Bright, blazing with lethal light. I don't know. She uses fucking weird words sometimes. Anything with golden. I'm tired of hearing about golden skin, golden eyes, golden hair, golden light, golden arc. Everything's fucking gold with this woman. I don't get it. Is that petty? Is it me? Am I the drama? She'd heard the boom a minute ago, recognized the golden arcing plume as brimstone, thanks to news coverage. The brimstone missiles launched one after another, the closest arcing towards the old square, shimmering with youthful golden power. How can power be golden? Sarah J Maas, explain. I just finished House of Earth and Blood, and quite frankly, the last 200 pages were good. The problem is it's an 800-page book. In all seriousness, I like the way it concluded. It felt epic and finally fantastical, which is what I was waiting for the whole time, not just a murder mystery drug investigation. So I really enjoyed that. I almost teared up a couple times. I'm not gonna lie, there's some characters, of course side characters, I don't care what the fuck happens to main characters in Sarah J Maas's, but her side characters are decent. As I was saying earlier, like Rune, and there's also Lahaba, who's this little like fire sprite that works with Bryce. Just some really good side characters, and I definitely enjoyed seeing what happened to them, and like I like how the stakes got high. I'm also glad that this didn't finish on like a specific cliffhanger. Like there was a little epilogue that had some characters talking, but like it was so vague that it didn't really matter. I'm definitely not gonna read the next books. A lot of people say they read the next one honestly for the side characters, and I can totally see that. However, with how big her books are and how much I hate her writing, it's just not worth my time. But I'm okay with how it ended. It was not like the worst experience. I really fucking hated the writing, but the plot actually picked up and there was some action. It was interesting and there was like things happening, and we finally got something, yeah, happening. Because it was a whole lot of nothing for the previous 600 pages. So I guess I can't complain too much that 200 pages out of an 800-page book had some action. Other than that, it's like no thoughts, head empty. Like this book will not leave a lasting impression on me, despite the fact that it took me like 3 months to read. This book is not good in my opinion, but it was a source of entertainment for myself and hopefully for y'all. And stay tuned when I do a final like well thought out wrap up. But as of right now, having just finished this, the ending was good. I actually can't complain. I like that it kind of finished as a standalone. I liked where some of the characters ended up. Some of the others not as much. Is it like the most well thought out innovative ending? No. You could tell where shit was going, but that didn't make it less entertaining, I guess. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. I realized I didn't give a rating and I'm struggling a little bit. I think I'm deciding on 2 stars, which is the same I've given all her other books, because I can always find something redeemable. I despise the writing. I despise the characters for the most part. The plot's useless. Mainly her writing is like the main thing that drives me up the wall, because we are dealing with fantasy and her world building was just garbage. But like the plot for the most part sucked, but there was like, it was engaging enough, I guess. I don't know if it was because it's like candy and I just like want to keep reading it, because I did, like I was able to bang out like hundreds of pages in single sittings. Like the end was decent. There's parts that were like actually kind of funny. I hate to say it, mostly involving like good side characters, but there's like occasional funny moments. Like I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I giggled. I cringed more than I giggled, but I giggled a couple times. So I'm gonna give this a 2 star like I've given every other Sarah J Maas book. Are they good? No, in my opinion. Are there somewhat redeeming qualities? Like a couple to each of them. Also, the fact this is an adult fantasy book, and for what? This is literally tropey young adult, which I read young adult, don't come for me, I don't hate it. But if you're gonna slap a $40 hair price tag on this book because it is adult fantasy, you need to make it worth my fucking time and money. This is not adult fantasy. This should have stayed in young adult. Just cut the swearing and make it young adult, because that's what it was. That's what it was. World building, nil. Nothing at the level of adult fantasy. Character building, nil. Not at the level of other adult fantasies. Swearing, yes, adult. Well thought out, no. Tropes, young adult. Why? I'm glad I didn't buy this, by the way. Ray had gifted me a copy and a paperback at that. So luckily she didn't have to pay the full price for a hardcover, because that shit's expensive. In Canada, brand new hardcover adult fantasy books go from anywhere from $35.99 to $42.99. Just let that sink in for a second. That's fucking expensive. Meanwhile, brand new young adult fantasy hardcover titles go for about $25.99, which this should have been. Is it petty? I feel so petty in this whole review. Hello friends, welcome to the wrap-up for this godforsaken book and its vlog. For you, it has been mere seconds. For me, it's been 6 months. But we're not gonna talk about that because today I wanted to give last thoughts and do some math when it comes to this book, because I sat down and I did math, okay? Just for you. Me and math are not friends, okay? I don't like her very much. I don't think she has a problem with me, I just don't like her very much. But I still sat down and did math. For science, I decided to count how many times the word door appears in this book. Actually, we're gonna go from least to most, okay? So the word alcohol appeared 21 times, okay? One was even too much. No, we got it 21 times that I could count. Then we have miscellaneous swear words. Things like shit, bitch, bastard, ass. I don't think I counted every instance of ass either, but we had 232 of those. The word door appeared a lovely 369 times. And finally, the word fuck and all its iterations, so fucked, fucking, 507 times. That's a lot for your eyeballs to read in one book, okay? So then I sat down, I said, why don't we take this step further? I know that the book has, or at least I found online, that it has 246,000 words, which means that swear words account for 0.3% of every word in this book. For context, the word the usually makes up about 5% or just a little bit under of any book. And swear words in this book make up 0.3% alone. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But then we broke it down by page, because why not, right? So I found out that in general, swear words appear on every page, 1.08, every 1.08 pages. The word fuck specifically appears every 1.58 pages, and the word door appears every 2.17 pages, which in my opinion is entirely too much for an 800-page book, okay? That's a lot of times to read the same words over and over, especially if that word is door. And as I was going through to count this, I don't know if I've made these notes before, but I want to show you. So this is all dumping, info dumping. I have the words come the fuck on, this is excessive here, just to demonstrate my annoyance. What else did I notice? 2 more pages of info dumping. The word dancing and like the fact that Bryce dances, it's almost as if it's introduced to build character to Bryce, but it's not important to the story. There's nothing in terms of like really like the friends that she made, except for the one friend that appears when it's convenient. I think the Fawn, or was her name Fawn? Her name was Dawn, wasn't it? It was just a really poor attempt at giving someone a personality. It's like when you make a basic character sheet and it's like, what is her passion? Dancing. I want to make sure I bring it up every fucking time to remind you that this person has a personality. Babes, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Bryce still does not have a lot of personality. The dead girl had more personality than Bryce. I got to know Danica a lot more than I got to know Bryce. And I'm, quite frankly, much more interested in reading about Danica and Rune and some of the side characters than Bryce and Hunt. I'm just, like, having flipped back through it, I realized just how much I didn't like it. Would I recommend this book? I think that's what some of this is gonna come down to. Would I recommend this book? No, I would not. If you have at all similar reading taste to me, I would not recommend this. If you're looking for an adult high fantasy because you heard this is Sarah J. Maas's first venture into it, I still would not recommend this. If you are looking for a world very similar to ours that just has a few extra magical creatures sprinkled in, but you're looking for something with like a mystery plot engine, then you could pick this up maybe. If you're interested in that mystery plot engine not really going anywhere until maybe the last bit of the book, because quite frankly not a lot happens in this for most of the book, despite the fact that they're trying to solve a mystery. Things happen to our characters more. So I would not recommend this book for the majority of readers, but if you're looking for something very specific, I can recommend it to you for that. And other than that, like if you're a fantasy reader, I still wouldn't really recommend this. I will never read Sarah J. Maas again. I really tried. And this is the other thing, like she had potential with Throne of Glass and Court of Thorns and Roses. For me, Court of Thorns and Roses, I loved the first half and then it kind of really went downhill. And once I really started looking at it critically, the book completely fell apart to me, but you know, I didn't hate it. Throne of Glass, clearly written by a 16-year-old, and while there's nothing wrong with that, I just don't think it deserves the accolades that it gets. But that was probably her strongest from a fantasy point of view. The world seemed like there was potential for it. There was actually some attempt at creating politics and intrigue, and that was probably her strongest attempt. Because for all the fantasy world info dumping we got in here, I've retained none of it. I do not care for any of it, and most of it has no importance. And while it may develop in later books, I still feel as though you could have plopped this in any existing world and it would be fine, including our own world. So the politics really had no impact on the story. Versus Throne of Glass, even though it was setting up the world, there was still clearly some kind of impact with what was happening in the political machinations of that world. So I think in terms of just best book quality, I would give it to Throne of Glass from her books. And I still rated that book 2 stars, 2.5, because the characters were ass and the writing was horrific. But overall, that was probably her best attempt at fantasy. The most solid, comprehensive, and enjoyable attempt at fantasy. Court of Thorns and Roses was clearly just a romance, and a pretty bad one at that. And this is just write a contemporary romance, Sarah Janet Maas. Just give the people what they want, and stop calling it an adult epic high fantasy, because it is not. And I'm not saying that. I've heard this complaint from her fans. I'm not saying that because she's a woman. Obviously, I read tons of high fantasy written by women. This is just not one, in my opinion. Under the typical classifications of high fantasy, just simply because it is set in a world that's not ours and has different creatures, in my opinion, does not make it high fantasy. I feel like there needs to be other elements to it, and this just does not contain those. This is an urban fantasy, and not a high fantasy, and not a very good one at that. But that's just my opinion. I just felt the need to kind of gripe with that because I read fantasy by women. I read high adult fantasy written by women. This is not a good example of that, nor do I think it is an example of that, period, unfortunately. And I think if you are looking for female authors, you could get ones that actually write female characters a lot better, and male characters. You just can get better. You can do better. I promise. I promise. If you're a fan and you're feeling upsetty spaghetti, I promise there's others out there, and this is just not good. However, if you enjoyed this book, and you've somehow sat through all of this, I would love to know what draws you to it, because I've heard, I don't know, most of the time I hear people talk about it, it's talking about the romance, which fair enough, that's not for me. But if you are a fantasy reader and you enjoyed the fantasy in this, I'd love to know why. Overall, the process of reading this and recording the vlog and reading it with Robin and all of that was fun. This is just not a good book in my opinion. It is not a book I would recommend. I will not be reading Sarah J Maas again, but you know what? I got plenty of enjoyment out of picking it apart because I am a hater to my core and I do love shitting on things. So that was fun. A big thank you to Ray again for sending me this. I wanted to give it an honest shot and I did. You know, I can still say nice things about it, like the fact that it was readable and that some of the side characters are decent. Unfortunately, one of the female ones had to die that I liked. If that gives you any indication how Sarah J Maas writes her stuff. But you know, there's like, I can see why people like her books in general, I guess, if you really want to turn your brain off, because there's no like meat on the bones here. It's really just a story that you sit and read. There's no critical thinking required. There's no deeper themes and explorations, in my opinion, and the ones that are there have been done better everywhere else virtually. So it's definitely something you can just turn your brain off and enjoy, and I respect that if that's what you're looking to get out of it. It's just not something that I enjoyed. I was hoping for her first foray into adult high fantasy there would be really something there for me to latch onto and see why she's so popular, but I can safely say she's not an author for me. I will not be picking up new releases, and I really just will not be recommending her. I probably won't talk about her again on my channel, other than as an example of what not to do when I'm comparing to better books, because now I can safely say that I've read from a different spectrum. Because I was thinking about it the other day and I'm like, I tend to like most of the fantasy that I read, and is it just because I'm bad at reviewing and looking at books critically? And it's like, no, I have read some mediocre fantasy, and this is an example of that. Unfortunately, I wanted to like it, but at least I have something to compare it to now. Which, all of this sounds super shady. Like, I genuinely wanted to at least somewhat enjoy this. I don't go into books hoping I'm gonna absolutely hate them. That's why I don't read Colleen Hoover books, because I know I'm not gonna like them and I'm not going to put myself through that. I had somewhat of a hope for this, and unfortunately didn't live up to it, but this has been a fun experience. Like I said, if you have read this book and enjoyed it and you like the series, please let me know what it is about it that draws you to it. I am obviously always interested in opening up a discussion. I don't know if any fans have stayed until the end because I've been just kind of shitting on it, but all that to say, yeah, this was an experience. I hope you enjoyed reading it along with me and seeing my thoughts. I don't know, I don't know if I'm a vlog girly, but this has been kind of fun. So maybe I could do more like deep dive fantasy reading vlogs for series that I love, or at least series that I'm reading. I'm gonna be hopefully finishing up The Realm of the Elderlings this year, if that is entirely possible, which it could be. And then I might want to get into like Wheel of Time or The First Law, or even as I'm finishing up The Realm of the Elderlings, if people want more vlogs, I'd love to do them, I'm thinking, if I have the brain capacity. So yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this. I don't know if it turned out well, but I think it did. I don't know, it was fun. It was an experience. That's the only way I'm going to talk about this book from now on. It was an experience, and I'm glad I did it. Now I can safely say Sarah J. Maas is not for me, but yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching till the end, if you did. And like I said, let me know in the comments if you have read this, if you want to read this, if I have killed your appetite for it, or on the opposite spectrum, maybe whet it, if this is something you are looking for. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye.